How are we going to start?
I was going to say, do you... I don't know. Are you wanting to kind of lead us in, or do you want me to, or...
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. 3, 2, 1.
Did you get that? I'm so confused.
Also, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof.
You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living Between Cultures with Josh and Feli.
Well, hello, everyone.
Welcome to our very first podcast episode. For me, it's under special circumstances because I currently still have a broken wrist. Probably when this comes online, I'm already back to normal, but this was a bit challenging, setting everything up.
Well, welcome, everyone. We're glad that you're here. This is a very exciting occasion for us. We've been working on this for probably 2 months now, just with planning and trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to do. But we're glad that we're finally having the opportunity now to record and talk about some of the things that we tend to talk about in our everyday life anyway. But be able to share that with the world and see what people tend to agree with, or what their thoughts are on some of these topics that, like we always say, are part of our daily conversations when we hang out.
Those of you who came over from my YouTube channel probably already know both of us. Definitely me, but probably Josh as well, because we recorded like 4 videos
I was going to say,
together.
I think it was 4 videos.
Yeah. And that's also how we came up with this idea, because we did 2 of those talking videos where we just sat down and talked for I want to say over an hour each time.
Yeah.
And I tried to cut it down to about 30 minutes per video, which was a lot of work.
Which is probably what's going to happen with this too. I have a feeling this is going to be a running occurrence of it running too long.
But I think that this format is going to be a lot more chill for that, because we don't really have a time limit. And with video, it's just people don't want to watch super long videos, but with podcasts, the format is just a lot longer anyways. So yeah, a lot of people just commented that below those videos and said that they would like for us to do a podcast, and we thought about it and we were like, yeah, sure, why not? Cool idea, actually.
Definitely.
And so here we are, and we picked the name Understanding Train Station, which, we should definitely explain that name. The Germans among you probably understand.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think maybe we should introduce ourselves first for the people who don't know us from your YouTube channel.
Okay, let's do that. So let's put the name thing on hold. So I'm Feli. Felicia is what I usually say in English, because it's really tricky
Felicia.
Yep. It's really tricky for English native speakers to pronounce my name correctly, because Feli has the E sound and the L sound. And I am a native German, born and raised in Munich, and I came to the US for the first time in 2016, or for the first time for a longer period of time. And I've been I came here, then I went back to Germany, then I came back to the US, and I want to say since 2 years ago, since 2018, I've pretty much been living here permanently, and we're based in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where we are right now. So I'm a German living in the US, and therefore language differences and culture differences are something that I am confronted with on a daily basis. And I started a YouTube channel in January 2018. That is what it's called for those of you who discovered us through a different way. And that's been pretty successful.
Yeah, I think it definitely took off more than you were anticipating at the beginning.
For sure. I didn't anticipate anything. But that's kind of how everything started out. I talk about cultural differences on there, and I brought you in, and that's kind of how now we're here. Started with us talking about these things at Stammtisch, and then me starting the YouTube channel, and now we have the podcast.
Exactly.
Your story, Josh.
Yeah, well, just as Feli is a German living in America, in the U.S., I'm an American living in the U.S.
Wow, fascinating.
Exactly. So my name's Josh. I'm a native of Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, technically I wasn't born here, but
Where were you born again?
In Virginia.
Oh,
yeah. But I've lived my entire life here.
Yeah.
So Cincinnati through and through. I started learning German because I have a very heavy German heritage in my family, but we've been in the U.S. for generations. But I started learning German in 10th grade, and I fell in love with it and languages in general.
I think so many Germans listening right now are going to be like, how did you fall in love with it?
Yeah, well, I think I loved the complexity. I think I liked the challenge of it.
The challenge, yeah, that makes sense.
And it was fun. The rules made sense to me. So I enjoyed discovering the rules and then figuring out how to internalize them.
Except for the articles.
Well, except for the articles, there's no rules. But yeah, so I started learning German in 10th grade, and like I said, fell in love with it, and then I decided to continue it. I made a couple German friends in high school who were exchange students, and that kind of opened me up somewhat to German culture. And then at UC, at the University of Cincinnati, I continued with my German education next to my main area of study, but double majored with German studies. And it's through UC somewhat that we got to know each other, and I got to know a whole bunch of other Germans. I did an internship in Germany. I've been to Germany, I think, altogether now like 10 or 11 times. So short trips, long trips, all together, I think 9 months pretty much, but all split up between various times. So I've gotten to experience a lot of the German culture through my travels, and then also having some German friends around here and learning to, quote unquote, I don't like to say it, but master the German language.
Yeah, no, you've definitely mastered it.
That I've become somewhat Germanized. So it's been interesting to come back from my travels and see the U.S. through a different perspective, having gained a lot of experience while abroad.
Yeah, definitely. And like those of you who have not seen those YouTube videos that we referred to earlier, don't know that Josh is also very, very fluent in German. I mean, you just described it, but you also have like almost no accent. So that's like kind of like what makes you super special with that whole story. So if you want to hear that, maybe check out the YouTube videos, because he really does sound like a native German speaker, almost like 99%, I want to say. But on this podcast, just because it's like going to be difficult to include that, we're probably going to stick with English for
at least,
of the time.
And I think we've said that we want to stick with English to try to maintain as large of a population or a viewing audience, not viewing, listeners.
Yeah, I mean
listening
both.
Listening base as possible. But I think at some point we may come out with a couple German episodes, so I think we're just going to kind of play it by ear, but stick with English definitely as the majority language.
So those of you who came to hear, to listen to Josh speaking German, we kind of have to disappoint you with that, but you can hear him speak German on my YouTube channel. There's also a tongue twister challenge that we did together. But yeah, back to the listening and viewing thing.
Yes.
So you guys can also see, if you don't know what we look like, you can check that out on YouTube, because we're also, while we're recording the audio, we're also recording with a camera, and you can check it out on Understanding Train Station, or like that's what the
YouTube
channel is going to be called, on YouTube. And if you prefer just sitting down in front of a screen and watching a podcast rather than listening while you do something else, you can totally do that.
And I think that leads us into explaining our name then.
Yeah.
Understanding Train Station. Like you said, Understanding Train Station needs a little bit of explanation, especially if you don't speak German. And
if you don't speak German, it really doesn't make any sense.
And even after speaking with some of our German friends, they didn't always get it right away.
Yeah, because we kind of like changed it up a little bit.
So essentially, Understanding Train Station comes from a German idiom, which is Ich verstehe nur Bahnhof, which literally translates to I only understand train station, which now I'm intrigued. Do you know what we would say in English, Feli, for that?
I feel like I know. Is it okay, no, tell me. But I kind of feel like I wouldn't know if you tell me.
It's Greek to me is probably the best way that I would...
Because just recently I looked it up somewhere, or like not looked it up, but like I came across this, the translation, or like the English equivalent for my Instagram, because I do like these little meme things on my Instagram. And I looked it up, and I tried to like remember to talk about it on the podcast. So I knew it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I think for you, those of you who aren't native English speakers, probably this Greek to me doesn't necessarily make sense either. So essentially, it's an idiom that's used to express that you don't understand what's happening. So,
but that one, I want to say, like, people use that a lot. Like,
which one, the German one or the English one?
Both.
Yeah.
The English one I've definitely heard so many times.
I'd say it's pretty common, but just in case you didn't know what it meant. So our goal then with this podcast is kind of to help people understand train stations. So essentially take concepts and our day-to-day, activities or things that occur to us every day where we think, this is different in Germany or this is different in the US. We thought it would be a cool opportunity to maybe explain some of those things and just talk about them, because we probably would talk about it anyway, but
basically
why not make the conversation larger?
Like train station in this like metaphor basically stands for the other culture that you're new to, and like also the language too, because in some cases only understanding train station in German when you say ich verstehe nur Bahnhof can mean that you don't know certain words that are used, but it can also just mean that whatever was just said just doesn't make sense to you in the context. Like you just don't understand how this connects to anything. Yeah. And I think that's really what happens a lot when you're like, you speak the language, like you're fluent in German, I'm fluent in English, but still when I first came here, even though I understood the words, I sometimes just still didn't understand what was going on or what people wanted from me. Yeah. And that's kind of what it is, I would say.
No, for sure. It actually makes me think. I work for a German company, and I have constant contact with our German colleagues. I was talking to one of the designers, and he just was going on and on and on and on and on. And I understood the words he was saying, but I was like, ganz ehrlich gesagt, ich verstehe jetzt wirklich nur Bahnhof. And then he had to...
Did you actually say that?
Yeah, I used the expression. And then he had to explain everything a little slower, and I don't know, we figured it out, but I think that's a good example of like how you would use it.
Yeah, I guess the theme of the podcast is going to be kind of like being lost in a new culture, lost in translation, kind of along those lines. But not just being lost, of course, just like also finding interesting differences, as you said. And we're also, so we can maybe talk a little bit about what we've planned.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, the main focus is going to be Germany and the US, English and German kind of, but we're also going to talk just about the general struggles of being abroad, being an expat. So we're also going to talk with people who are from other culture backgrounds, like a friend of ours who's from India living in the US, another German friend that we know who came here.
One of my Mexican friends may join us, hopefully. So our goal is really, and I think it's interesting, especially in expat communities. I mean, I'm not an expat here in the U.S., but I tend to surround myself by a lot of them.
You're probably going to be an expat soon.
Yeah, but generally in expat communities, I think it's interesting that they tend to stick together. So I think we really want to pull on those resources that we have, because we have friends from all over the world, and just hear how their experiences are different than ours. Because you and I share very similar backgrounds as far as the cultures that we're interacting with, but...
And also, like, all those people have fascinating stories, too. Yeah. Like, even our other German friend, Niklas, who, I mean, obviously has, like, also similar experiences because he's also from Germany, living in Cincinnati, but he came here through work.
Exactly.
And has, like, a totally different point of view as to how he experienced the culture. I think what I didn't mention was that I first came here for an exchange semester. And you kind of mentioned that we met through the University of Cincinnati. So I came here,
Quasi, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think without that, we definitely wouldn't have met.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't have even been here without the university. So
we'll give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, thanks, UC.
Go Bearcats.
So I got my bachelor's in Munich. So I was born and raised in Munich, and then I stayed there for college, which is pretty common in Germany. And I got my bachelor's in communication studies and political science. And towards the end of my undergrad, which, like, in Germany you don't have to pay for it, so you can kind of like stretch it out in the end a little bit if you want to be a student for a little bit longer. So I didn't need any more credits anymore, but I wanted to go abroad, and there was different exchange programs, but one was with the University of Cincinnati, and I really wanted to experience American college life.
Were there other opportunities in the U.S.?
There was one other opportunity in the U.S., but it was a program where I would have had to pay half of the tuition.
Okay.
And it was like a little bit more serious. Yeah. Like, it was like a journalism program.
Yeah.
And here I was in electronic media, which was something that I was doing anyway at the time. Like, I worked at radio stations and TV stations besides my undergrad. And I loved that at UC, because, like, it's an American college where, like, tuition costs a lot. They had all this equipment and all these resources to, like, offer video production classes with actual real good cameras,
That's cool.
good video editing stuff, audio production in an actual recording studio and stuff like that. So
It's good to know where my tuition dollars were
yeah,
going.
that's where it went. And I didn't have to pay anything because as an exchange student, you don't pay. Like, you pay tuition at your home university. But since in Germany college is free, I like really didn't pay anything for that. I mean, you have to pay like a few fees, like an international student fee or something.
Did the
like
fact that you had been to Cincinnati previously play into that?
Oh
your
yeah,
decision?
yeah, we haven't mentioned that
Exactly.
either. My story is so complicated. Not really. I mean, I guess I kind of thought, oh wow, it must be destiny that like this program is with Cincinnati again. So the very first time I ever came to the U.S. was with a high school exchange program between the city of Munich and the city of Cincinnati because they're sister cities. And this was when I was in 10th grade. So when I was 16 years old, and it was like 2 weeks in Cincinnati and 2 weeks in Munich. And I really it was such a coincidence that happened because actually my friend wanted to do this. Like, she found a flyer about this program. Yeah, because it was like not connected to a high school. It was people from like all over Munich. Like, I didn't know anyone in the program.
Wow.
And my
I didn't
friend,
realize that.
My friend found a flyer somewhere and told me that we should do that together. And then she missed the application deadline.
Oh no.
So I don't even think that like...
So she didn't even come?
No, she didn't even apply. She didn't even get to the application process. And I like at the time I was pretty...
Were you bummed?
No, pretty like shy. I wouldn't say like... I was like a little Angsthase. I was like...
Scaredy cat.
Yeah, I was not the kind of person who was like, oh yeah, let's go explore the world, adventures. I really just wanted to stay within my comfort zone.
Really?
And I don't think I would have applied for a program
so
where I didn't know
interesting.
anyone in a country I'd never been to, in another language, without anyone that I knew. So I think it was really just, I applied for her pretty much.
Okay.
I thought we were going to do this together.
Yeah.
But then, like, she wasn't in the application process. There were like 80 people who applied and they only took, I think, 15. So then, like, I also got lucky that I was picked.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty big honor. Like, we were in Cincinnati staying with host families, but we also, because it was like this official exchange program, we got to walk in the baseball opening day parade.
Oh, cool.
In our dirndls and
Oh, yeah?
lederhosen. And we like met the mayor and those kind of things.
It's so random. Like, why on earth is Cincinnati the sister city with Munich? Munich is what, third largest city in Germany?
I think third.
I think it's third behind Berlin and Hamburg.
Hamburg, yeah.
But why was Cincinnati, you know? But that's,
I mean,
that's really
there is a
cool.
lot of like connection to Germany for sure in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I even think our fountain Square is from Munich.
Is from Munich. It was cast in Munich and then shipped over. And there's a lot of... Cincinnati is such a German city, just like history-wise. But yeah, I mean, those sister city connections are always pretty random. Like Munich has, I think, like 6, 7, or 8 sister cities. And there's like the Wappen. What's Wappen?
Like coat of arms.
Coat of arms that's in the arch of the Munich City Hall.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
If you walk
so the Cincinnati
in a
one's
bit,
there too? One thing that's interesting, so kind of speaking about me then some.
Yeah.
My first time in Germany, I was 18, and it was with a school trip. So right after I graduated high school, my high school German teacher organized a trip, and she's from Germany. But she organized a trip to take some students over there. So that was my first real experience, was a quick 2-week trip through Central Europe. I think we saw like 10 cities in like 14 days. It was a really fast trip. But it was a great first experience. But then later on, I went and visited some friends. I stayed 2 weeks in Bavaria, right on the border with Austria, just with a friend's family and with him hanging out. But the next time, or I guess I'm getting to my point when I was in Munich, I was living near the Messe, near the convention center, and there's a park actually right next to the convention center.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Cincinnati like Peace Park or something. I don't remember exactly what Friendship Park I think is what it's called. And they have all of this what do you say in English? Fauna and flora, mostly flora. So flowers.
Yeah.
It's all of this vegetation, all of these flowers that you would find in the Ohio River Valley, which is where Cincinnati
Oh, really?
is.
Oh, that's what
Yeah,
they did? Okay, because I had no clue that existed.
Yeah, it's just this tiny little garden.
But you showed me a picture of it, and I was like, I mean, it totally makes sense. I do know we do have, I'm not sure if it's still open, but we used to have a cinema called Cincinnati
Really?
in Munich.
Okay.
I want to say it's still open. I think so. That's how I even knew that Cincinnati was a city, because I think otherwise, like growing up, like otherwise I would have had no clue that Cincinnati even existed,
That's
to be
random.
honest.
So random.
Yeah, but for me, I then, during that exchange semester, we met at a Stammtisch. So like that's the story is that, let me think, what is the story? Because first I met Mallory, which was a friend of ours.
Yeah. So I think you were looking for a roommate, weren't you?
Yeah, so that was still when I was in Germany. I posted into those like college housing Facebook groups. Because I was looking for a room to stay in, because I didn't want to stay on campus. I wanted to stay off campus because it's cheaper, and I wanted to have like more freedom and also my own room. And I was trying to live with Americans though, and not other exchange students, because I really wanted the real American experience. And I think Mallory is an American friend of ours who also, did she major in German?
I don't think so, but she definitely studied it.
Yeah. And she had been to Bielefeld, I think, before, and had also like a pretty strong connection to the German language. And she hit me up before I even came to the US saying, hey, I don't have a room for you.
I was going to say, I don't even think she had a room for you.
No, she just said, hey, I don't really have a room for you, but it's so cool that you're from Germany. Do you want to meet up and like speak some German when you're here? And this is what someone told me before I first went abroad, and I always tell this to people who go abroad now, is that in the beginning you should embrace every opportunity that arises, and every person who reaches out to you, you should take advantage of that. And so that's what I did, and we met up, and then she said, I have all these cool friends at German Club. At UC, you were the German Club president, right?
No, I was the vice president.
Oh, vice president.
So, while all that was happening, you were in Germany. I was here at UC, and like I said, I was majoring in German. One of my majors was German, and somehow I ended up as German Club vice president. And me and our other friend, Cynthia was the president. And it was the smallest little German club. We met like once a week, and we just played games. I think we played a lot of, Stadt, Land, Fluss?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I never made it to any of those sessions. Like, I think because, when I came, then the German club had decided to, instead of meeting once a week
we started
and
going
play
to the
games,
Stammtisch.
you went to the Stammtisch that existed anyways in the city, which is by the German organization Cincy Deutsch. And they meet, or I think they actually still do, once a week at Mecklenburg Gardens, which is an old German restaurant in Cincinnati. And it's just a group of people meeting up there. They have like a really nice beer garden. They have German beers, a lot of Bavarian beers too. And they just meet up and try to really practice as much German as possible. Obviously, like people also speak English.
It's such an interesting mix of that thing too, because you get people who are natives.
Yeah, and a lot of people who have German heritage and kind of just really want to hold on to that. Yeah. And a lot of them actually, I think, only learned German later in their life. And so I went to that with Mallory, I think.
While
and
my group was there.
Yeah, the whole like German club was there. And I think the first thing you said to me, I think we were like sitting across, like I was sitting at one end of the table and you were like on the other end of the table.
Yeah.
And
probably just said Servus.
You said something like, Bist aus Minga? And I totally thought you were a native, like German, also from Bavaria somewhere. Yeah. So he asked me if I was from Munich, but like, in a Bavarian accent. And as I said, like he doesn't really have an American accent, so I totally thought you were a native. And then I think we talked for a little bit, and that's all I remember. I don't think we like talked very much at the beginning, but
then we just started hanging out more and became friends through that.
Yeah, like with the whole group pretty much. It's so random. I mean, what if we'd never met?
That would be so weird. Well, especially too, because so after your exchange semester here, was it just one semester or was it a whole year?
No, it was a semester.
After your semester, you went back to Germany, and I actually went to Germany.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was that same summer.
Yeah, it was the summer.
Because that was when you were in Hamburg.
I was here from August through the beginning of January 2017, and then like summer of 2017 is when you came to Germany.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up actually doing an internship in Germany. That was my first long stay in Germany. So I worked for a German company here. I did an internship at a German company here in Cincinnati, and then had the opportunity, or I asked if it would be possible for me to go to one of their German branches for a summer and do a 3-month internship.
Yeah.
And they said yes. So I actually got to then go to Erfurt for 3 months, which was an amazing experience too. And like you were saying, kind of coincidence with coming to Cincinnati after doing an exchange here originally, that 2-week or whatever thing with the sister city.
Yeah.
My high school German teacher is from Erfurt.
Yeah.
So it was really cool because for me, Germany was Erfurt because I always saw videos. She like would show home videos of like the Weihnachtsmarkt, the Christmas market, which is something that's very German.
Yeah.
And I was there. I was like, I feel like I'm in the movies because
so
I was
funny.
in her home movies.
A lot of Germans would like, to us that sounds so weird that Erfurt equals Germany.
Yeah. I actually was just listening to the Easy German podcast, and they were just talking about Thüringen or Thuringia in English. And they were saying that, like, no German knows unless you're from there, very few people know much about it.
Well, it's also part of the former East Germany, former GDR.
Exactly.
So
They said they only think of, I always mess this up because of the Heute Show. Is it Bernd or is it Björn Höcke?
see, I missed
Because
it
the
up.
Heute Show messes up. Heute Show is like I think it's Bernd.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's Bernd, and they make fun with Björn.
Yeah, exactly. But he's just a politician in Germany that's pretty far right.
Yes.
But yeah, no, so you're right. I mean, it was a pretty obscure city, but for me, it was like, this is just kind of. It was like home. Mm-hmm. Well, especially because her family met me while I was there, and like they took care of me. I actually got to go with them up to the Baltic Sea, and it was a cool experience. And I also lived in a WG, which is a shared apartment. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, you really just have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have to meet new people and try new things.
Yeah.
So that was a huge experience for me.
Yeah, and you visited me too, because at the time I did an internship in Hamburg, and then you visited me in Hamburg for a little bit, checked out the Kiez.
With my broken
the
foot.
Reeperbahn. Yeah, wow. But then after that summer, I went straight back to the U.S. So it's been like a constant back and forth.
Well, you'll go one place, I'll be in the other, and it's been
a lot of
interesting.
times
Very much
where
an international friendship.
Yeah, there have been a lot of times where I was in the U.S. and you were in Germany, and we kind of missed each other.
Yeah.
I came back for a half-year internship, then I went back to Germany again, and then I came back for a master's in German studies at the same department that you did your double major at. I got my master's there, and I also taught German for the first time, which was really interesting for me, actually. I liked that the most, almost, about the program, because, I mean, we had always been talking about language differences, and sometimes, like, obviously, as a native speaker, you never understand your own language, and that was really interesting to me to finally understand how non-native speakers even learn all the different cases, and sometimes I didn't even realize that we had something like that in German. I didn't realize that you had to change the ending of every adjective with the case.
Really?
You
obviously do it.
I do it, of course, but I wasn't actually aware of that you that it's not just the noun but also the adjective that you have to.
It's very complicated.
And like if you have like an indefinite article.
Yeah, the ending changes.
So
if you have a definite, article, it's one ending. If you have an indefinite, it's a different ending, and that changes for every case.
Okay, let's give an example for all the German speakers. So like ein großer Baum, der große Baum.
Yeah.
So just think about that as a German native. Like, my brain exploded when I found out about that. I was like, oh my God, poor you. That was a great experience, though. I got my master's in 2 semesters, so like 8 months in the US, which was really intense. Extremely, and also like I didn't have any life during those 8 months, but it was a pretty good deal because I didn't have to pay anything. Because like as a grad student at that program, you automatically got a full ride, and then or like a scholarship for the tuition, and then you got the teaching assistant position, which was actually paid fairly well, at least like for like a student job, pretty much. I could totally live off that, and then basically I just made money with that and gained a master's degree. And in Germany, like I would have had to at least spend 2 years on a master's degree and definitely not make any money during that. So, Yeah, and after that, so we're finally to the last step of my journey, pretty much. After that, I won, or like actually during that time, I won the green card lottery, the diversity visa lottery, which was really lucky because I only took part in it once, and there's people who really take part in it every year for like 20 years. And yeah, I took part in it for the first time. I think the chances for a German to win were like 1%. But also, like, I mean, you never know. Like, there's a lot of people on the internet who say that it's really not a lottery. So, I mean, I don't know, but I consider myself very lucky. And so since August 2019, so I graduated with my master's in May 2019. Then since August 2019, I've been a permanent resident. I had to travel back to Germany to do the green card interview.
Oh, we have to tell the story sometime about your overstay.
Oh, well, that's so complicated.
We don't have to get into that now.
We can do that sometime.
I think that would be an interesting... I think people would enjoy that story.
True, yeah. Maybe at some point when we talk about, like, visas and stuff like that.
Yeah, and how you can easily mess stuff up.
And, like, the U.S. is so strict. Like, whenever... We just talked about this yesterday. Whenever you enter the country, even now that I'm on a green card, if you're not a citizen, and even if you're a citizen, they ask you questions. But if you're not a citizen, they really kind of treat you as if you're a criminal, especially if you keep entering the U.S. If you're just a one-time tourist, it's really not that big of a deal.
It's more guilty until proven innocent rather than innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
But yeah, well, I mean...
that's my story.
Yeah, so now, don't worry, people. She has a visa. She's here legally.
Yeah, I'm here on a green card, which is awesome, too, because, like, with all these visas, I mean, I definitely think that we're going to have an episode about all this stuff, because there's so much to it. But with a visa, it's just so restricted in regards to what you're allowed to do and how long you can stay and all of those things. So
that'd be interesting, because our visa system here in the U.S. is so complicated. It would be interesting with each guest that we bring on to talk about their visa experience, because I know in each country it's different too.
I have no clue about the German visa process, and a lot of people always ask me about
but I'm talking about even just getting a U.S. visa from a different country.
It's different,
it would be a lot harder to get one in India or Mexico than it is from Germany.
I mean, as a German, you're pretty lucky, pretty privileged. But with a green card, you're pretty much able to do whatever you want, I want to say, like, except for I can't vote. Obviously, I'm not a citizen. But I can just stay here and I can be unemployed if I want to, because with a visa, you cannot do that. And a lot of work visas are connected to one specific position, one specific company and job. But now, like, I can be unemployed if I want to. I can work on the side. I can be a freelancer. Currently I'm self-employed with YouTube pretty much. So that's a pretty big luxury for me. Can you say that? Pretty big luxury?
Luxury. Yeah, I think you could say that. I don't know. People will probably say stuff in the comments of the YouTube video that you can't say it, but let's say you can.
Okay, let's just make that up now.
But yeah, while you were doing all of that, kind of with your master's, I was finishing up my degrees here at UC. But kind of in the meantime, then networking as far as trying to find a job for after graduation. Yeah. I work in a technical field. I studied industrial management.
Which is pretty much, what is the equivalent in Germany?
Wirtschaftsingenieurwesen.
So it's like a mix of economics and...
I always describe it as a mix between mechanical engineering and operations management.
Okay.
So essentially your first 2 years you spend with the engineers, and then your last 2 in the business school learning about logistics, production planning, all that type of technical stuff that you probably know nothing about and have zero interest in. But it was a really interesting degree, especially because I started off purely in mechanical engineering, and after a year and a half of that, I was like, I think I have had enough math and science. So I started looking for a new degree program and ended up in industrial management, and that's how through the advisor for the industrial management program is how I ended up at my first company, my first German company that sent me to Germany for 2 weeks. And then through that experience, I met the head of HR at that company, who then moved to my current company. So when I was graduating from UC, I just reached out and was like, hey, I know you're at a different company now, but remember me, I speak German. I'm sure you need people who speak German. So that's how I got connected with my current company. And they sent me over to Germany for 3 months for training. So that was the first time I had really spent an extended period of time in Munich. Like I said, I had the three months in Erfurt.
Erfurt.
But then had 3 months in Munich.
Yeah,
so,
which is my hometown.
Yeah, which is your hometown, but which was cool because we already knew each other at that point. So then you could give me some tips and Yeah, it was a really cool experience. I lived out in the Podunks, like out in the boonies, in the middle of nowhere, pretty much.
Yeah, so the first time you lived in...
I didn't actually live technically in Munich.
Yeah.
It was,
so it was
I think
like...
it was Landkreis Ebersberg, I think is probably what it is. Pretty much right next to the airport, and the airport is very far away from the city center in Munich. So it was not quite the experience that I had when I was in Erfurt, because in Erfurt I was living in a shared apartment in the city center. So completely different experience, more of a student experience.
Yeah.
And this time I was by myself in this little town where like no one was walking around, no one walked around. Like people were, you'd see like old grandmas walking. It wasn't very lively.
But it's just very rural.
Yeah, very rural, very
My favorite
different.
word to say.
Rural. Yeah, I mean horse farms and everything.
Yeah.
But it was a cool, different experience. But then I came back to the U.S. and worked here for another year at the company, and then they sent me back over for another 3 months.
And it's super interesting too, because like for you, like your connection with Germany basically helped you get that job, or like that's pretty much the reason why you worked for that company, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a German company and they pretty much also hired you for your German skills, right?
Yeah, I would actually say that's the reason they hired me. My boss told me at the beginning, I know you know nothing about automation, but I know that you can learn, and we really need people who speak German.
Yeah. So that's actually crazy how like for both of us, all those things, like one thing always leads to another.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Definitely. Well, I think we've talked on and on and on so far about a lot of just our stories, but I think moving on to kind of what we had planned for the rest of this, it's not like we have a whole bunch more still planned, but we thought it would be, besides our stories and explaining our name in this episode, it'd just be interesting to give you guys kind of a tidbit of what it'll be like in the future of topics that we want to talk about, besides our just personal stories. But we said that it would be interesting to see or to hear from each other what like their first culture shock was when they went to the other country for the first time.
Yeah, and that's actually crazy because we talk about culture shocks or like cultural differences all the time, but it kind of evolves over time.
Yeah.
Like now, obviously for me, I've lived here for pretty much 4 years now, off and on. I view things very differently than I did in the very beginning, and it's actually super funny to think back and actually remember that first time.
Yeah.
So I was 16. How old were you?
I was 18.
18. So like we were both students still, and obviously that's a very different experience to begin with because you're just a lot younger.
Well, and also because you came with a big group of people your age, and a big group of Germans your age, and I came with a big group of Americans my age. So
wait, but you guys, did you stay with host families? No. Okay. So we stayed with host families, but I was actually, I want to say lucky. I mean, it's not really lucky. It's just I was one
Fortunate.
of the people. I was one of the people who stayed with another German in my host family. And I'm like, it really doesn't make a difference is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, being alone might even be the better option because then you don't speak German at all. But because I was so scared back then and I really didn't want to leave my comfort zone, I was glad that I got to stay with another German.
It's so interesting, though, because that's so not the Feli I know.
I changed a lot over time. Like, really, the whole going abroad thing really opened up new doors that I never thought I would discover. Just a little detour about that topic. I have a lot of friends, like obviously growing up, you always talk about where do you see yourself in the future? And a lot of my friends always wanted to be abroad. They wanted to travel the world and have adventures, or, you know, at least move to another city in Germany, like move to Berlin, to Hamburg, which is really far away from Munich. And I didn't even want that. I wanted to stay in Munich. Why would I leave my comfort zone? Yeah, daheim ist daheim. So, and now I'm, I don't even know how many miles I'm away from home, but I'm very far away from home. It just happened.
So back to that topic.
Back to the topic, yeah.
You walk off the plane here in the U.S. and you're spending 2 weeks here. What's the first thing that stood out to you, or maybe the biggest thing?
Okay, so I wrote down a few different things because I thought about this before. I kind of had to put myself back into this situation. As a German, at least you know a lot about the U.S. through pop culture, like movies and shows. And we watch a bunch of those shows growing up, and they're usually dubbed in German, but you just know all these typical American things. And as a kid, you always think it's so cool because your life doesn't look like that. Like
Yeah.
our high schools don't look like American high schools. So I always wanted to have a locker at high school because I always thought that was so cool because that's the stuff that I saw. I mean, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's really just you want to have what you can't have and what you see on TV. But it was a lot like that. It was a lot like the movies to me at first. And I remember one of the very first things that that kind of like, I guess, surprised me or shocked me was, I mean, all the things I wrote down are very much related to how big everything is. So I guess that's like the overall topic is everything's bigger in the US, especially in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's not the same story when you're in New York or somewhere on the East Coast. But in the Midwest, really, everything's so big.
And spread out, right?
And spread out. And I remember one of the very first things, I want to say this was like the second day, my host family, or I think our host dad, took me and the other German to Kroger for the first time, which is a grocery store in the US. And I was shocked by the produce section. We just walked in and there were piles of fruits and vegetables, and it was so big, and I didn't understand how this could be the regular grocery store. Like that to me just looked like something like super special. Or something, very expensive or something like that. But
that's so interesting.
That was the first thing, and then especially the onions. But apples too, like all of those, the fruits and vegetables, they're just so much bigger than they are in Germany. So
thank you, GMOs.
It's crazy. And I actually, back to the onions, I had a similar story back when I came back for my exchange semester. My roommate and I would go grocery shopping, and she said, I still need cheese, I still need pasta, I still need an onion. I was like, wait, what do you mean? One onion? What?
This is here in the U.S., right?
This was in the U.S., yeah. So this was my other time in Cincinnati back when I was in college then, later. Yeah. But then I had totally forgotten that everything's so huge. You really, to all the Germans, you only need one onion to cook because they're bigger than my hand. Yeah. And I took a picture.
They're about the size of a softball, is what I would say.
Yeah. And in Germany, they're, how would you describe that? They're like smaller than a tennis ball. Yeah. And you usually get a bag of onions and not just one onion. So that was one of the first things. But same with apples and oranges, I think. Yeah. And just the grocery itself, I thought I was in paradise. I was like, what is this? You can get everything you've ever dreamed of here. I think that one even had like those tanks with like living lobsters.
Oh, yep. That was pretty normal. That was in the... I grew up going to Biggs, which doesn't exist anymore, but there was always a lobster tank in the...
Yeah. And I was like, what is this place? And they said, this is our regular, like, everyday grocery store.
Yeah.
And also, to all of those people who don't know this, Kroger's actually based in Cincinnati. Yeah. So Cincinnati is actually a pretty... not important.
We have a couple Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, it's more important than you would think, actually.
Yeah. People always make fun of it.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your first culture shock that you remember?
Door handles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think not only the fact that there aren't door knobs, but rather door handles. So essentially, there's like a rod that you actually have to press down.
Yeah.
But I specifically remember getting off the plane and having to go to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom, and at like the stalls, first of all, this in Europe and probably most other countries besides the U.S., the doors in the stalls in the bathroom actually shut, like completely. There's no gap between them, and it's like...
Also at the bottom.
Like, it's like your own little room. It goes all the way to the floor. There's not that foot and a half gap there. But I specifically remember the door handles are different. Like it's a circle. It's like a cylinder with like a little cutout in the bottom for your finger. You know what I'm talking about?
Wait.
Normally they're gray.
Yeah.
And at least...
For your finger.
Yeah, not to go in, but essentially so you can put your finger in and grab to open the door.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So essentially imagine you have like a glass or some sort of cylindrical object, and there's just like a slight indentation in the bottom for your finger. Do you know what I'm talking about?
But those are really just like bathroom.
Yeah, that's not even
handles, right?
that's not even a doorknob, but I've only seen those in the bathrooms. But I was like, what is this? Like Did
you figure it out though?
Yeah, I mean it wasn't hard to figure out how to open. But essentially what it comes down, doorknobs and door handles in general are kind of just a general topic to describe
Definitely, yes.
But I think it's the small things that I notice the most.
Oh,
like,
for sure, yeah.
Every single day, or like everyday objects that are just slightly different.
Yeah, I know. You walk into this new country and like, of course, there is a house, there is a living room, there is a bathroom, but then like about these little things, there's things that are slightly different.
Yeah.
Like I remember the very first time that I wanted to take a shower, I didn't know how to turn on the shower because I had never seen a shower like that. Like how where you like turn on the water and then there's this little thing that you have to pull.
Yeah, there's like a stopper that you have to pull up.
To make it come out of the shower head, because like usually shower heads in the US are fixed shower heads and we usually have, what are they called?
It's like a hose pretty much. Like it's detachable.
Detachable, yeah, thank you. So we usually have detachable shower heads in Germany, and also just like the handles where you turn the water on just look different.
Yeah,
usually.
and that was kind of the biggest. That's not really a culture shock, but something I wasn't expecting was those little obviously I know this is a door and I know this is a doorknob, but it's just different.
Yeah,
same with the Steckdosen with the power outlets.
Yeah.
It's the same, but it's different.
Yeah, and it can make you feel really dumb. Like, because I remember I was in the shower and I didn't know how to turn it on, and I had to get out of the shower again in my towel and ask my exchange partner how to turn on the water. And you just like, you feel like you figured life out, but then you're suddenly at a door handle and you don't know how to work it.
Yeah.
I also remember actually like door handles in bathrooms. In the beginning, I sometimes didn't know how to lock the bathrooms in the US because in Germany you usually have just a thing that you turn
it's like
around.
it's almost like it's a built-in key that you just turn.
Yeah, or in some houses, private homes,
Oh,
you
there's
sometimes have
actually,
an
there is a
key.
key. Yeah, I thought that was really weird. I was like, why are there keys? Like, I know that from my grandma's house because they didn't replace like the doors like however many years ago, 50 years ago or whatnot. Because they actually had like a key
an actual
in the door.
key. But I mean, at least like you always have to turn something in Germany to lock your door. And in the US, in a lot of public bathrooms, but also some private bathrooms, there is some kind of
it's like
button
a slide
that you
or a button.
Yeah, the slide. I mean, I can figure out, but the button is always what made me.
Oh yeah, like on a doorknob.
On the doorknob, and when you press it, it's locked. But basically, you can't check if it's actually locked because once you press the door handle down, it's already unlocked again.
Yeah.
Or
I assume this is hard to explain over just a audio thing, but are you thinking of a doorknob which is round with a small button in the center of it?
Both.
Or do you know the one with the button off to the side which is right up against the door? So essentially
I'm trying to think.
Because essentially you can have one with a button that's in the center of the doorknob itself. Or oftentimes there's the doorknob and then there's like a little shield behind the doorknob, which is right up against the door, and there's a button there sometimes.
I want to say that's the one that I've
I'd say
seen
that's
at
more
private
common
homes.
I was going to say that's more common in homes.
But also just like the public bathrooms usually have the door handle with the button in the middle. And I'm pretty sure that I sometimes didn't lock my door because I didn't know how.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, on the topic of bathrooms as well, this wasn't my first time in Germany, but this was my first time like in a German home with a German family, like really immersed. I wasn't with a big group of Americans. This was my second time there visiting my friend Lucas.
Okay. So you stayed with your friend's family?
He picked me up from the airport. We drove, an hour and a half, 2 hours to Passau from Munich. And we showed up. I was jet lagged as all get out.
Oh, yeah.
And we show up in his house, and they all just start speaking Bavarian. And his mom is from Franken, so she doesn't speak it quite. It's a different sound.
But Bavarian dialect is a very heavy dialect.
He told me like they don't, and now that I know it, they don't really speak that strong of Bavarian. But at the time, I wasn't familiar with it at all. So we were sitting there.
Your teacher was from Erfurt.
Yeah, she sounded like she was from the east. But essentially, we were sitting there eating breakfast, like with Semmel and like everything, like your typical German breakfast. We were sitting there, and I didn't understand anything.
Damn.
I barely understood anything, and they just looked at me like. They asked me a question, and I didn't even realize they asked me a question.
Oh, wow.
And then Lucas was like, guys, I think we need to speak a little slower or try to speak a little more standard.
And how old were you at that point?
That's a good question. I think 19.
Okay, so this was like, you had started learning German
this was
when
after
you were
my
like
first
15 or so.
Yeah.
Or you said 10th grade, so like 15, 16
Yep.
is when you started learning German, which is really late. Okay, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, like you did understand a lot of German.
Yeah, when they were speaking slowly and speaking standard German, I was a part of the conversation. I mean, I still made a decent amount of mistakes back then, but no, I mean, just Bavarian, I hadn't had any exposure really besides what you see in media or whatnot.
It's scary. Like I did one high school exchange in ninth grade.
I didn't even explain why I was talking about being at
sorry.
their house. No, I'm sorry. I just realized this because we were talking about bathrooms and then we talked about Bavarian. Besides being overwhelmed by all of the dialect that was being spoken, I was so confused by the bathroom because the bathroom was about the size of the table that we're sitting at right now. Very, very, very small. Like just enough room for the toilet itself and this tiny little sink which was like the size of a shoebox.
Yeah, you would probably call that a Gästebad.
Yeah,
or
it was right in the Eingang, right in the entrance.
Yeah, that's very typical.
And I'd never seen a sink so small. So that was definitely a big culture shock.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, just like how as a European coming to the US, everything seems so gigantic. It must be the other way around for an American going to Germany.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say that I did a high school exchange in ninth grade to England. And it was Birkenhead, which is a little bit outside of Liverpool.
Okay.
And so this was ninth grade. I had been learning German since fifth grade, but not German, English.
Yeah.
But we don't learn it that intensely. I mean, we do learn a lot.
Well, Liverpool, they have a strong accent.
Yeah, but also like I definitely wasn't fluent at the time. And they have a really strong accent.
They do. That would be an
I
interesting
am pretty sure that
experience.
the whole week I didn't understand my host family because also they didn't speak another language and they didn't really understand that they had to speak a little bit more clearly for me to understand them. And then also after that in 10th grade, I did a high school exchange with Strasbourg for like speaking French.
Yeah.
And also there, like with French, I've always struggled with that. I always understood a lot when I read it, but when they speak, it's just everything's connected so much and they speak so quickly that I've always struggled understanding people.
Gosh, Feli, we have so many topics that we're going to be able to talk about.
I know. We're going to have a lot of episodes, hopefully.
Because I'm coming up with new ones as we talk, like
I know.
really international English as opposed to standard, and like how when you learn another language or live in another culture, you really appreciate and you figure out how to communicate more standard so everyone can understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like we're starting to push the time limit with this, push the patience of our always want to say viewers, of our listeners.
I mean both, but at the same time, I'm super excited for this podcast
Me too.
though, because like this is kind of why we're doing this, because we have so much to talk about. This is going to be the perfect format for this, because just like on YouTube, it's you need to try to keep things short and relevant, and this is just going to be so much fun and we're going to be a lot more free. So I'm super excited.
I think you're right. I mean, I'm looking forward to the freedom and the flexibility that this podcast format has, especially just with stuff coming up in both of our lives as far as where we'll be. And I think it'll be cool to be able to continue this for hopefully quite a few episodes, depending on if people seem to find it interesting or not.
Yeah, so you guys are definitely a part of this, even though with podcasts, there's really no way to comment, but we have other ways of getting involved. So obviously you can check us out on YouTube, subscribe at Understanding Train Station.
Yep.
Then we also have an Instagram, which is Understanding Train Station, so you can follow us there. You can message us there.
We'll actually have to start
comment.
posting stuff there now.
Yep. No, we're going to.
Oh, for sure.
You can also email us if you have any comments, requests, stories that you'd like to share.
That's understandingtrainstation@gmail.com.
And then, I kind of feel like that's also going to be cool because we're going to have the option, and I think also like the time to maybe bring in some stuff that people have sent us, some stories.
Definitely. And if you guys have recommendations of topics or personal experiences that you want to hear our opinions on, or see if we've had something different or similar, please let us know.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think our goal is to make this kind of a group project with you guys. So
definitely. If you would like to support us a little bit more, since I already know how the whole like YouTube game works a little bit, we jumped ahead and already created a Patreon for this podcast. It's also Understanding Train Station, obviously, and also a buymeacoffee.com page. For those of you who don't know what this is, Patreon is pretty much a way to support your favorite creators with a monthly donation, and you will get something in return for that, like a few little perks and benefits. Buymeacoffee.com is more a page where you can buy us a coffee or a beer, and there's no commitment, no monthly commitment, just like a little support if you would like to support us.
I think those are the main avenues and channels for people to reach out to us. But also, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or on some sort of platform that allows you to rate
I was
us.
just going to say that.
Yeah, we just would ask that if you guys enjoy what we're talking about and have enjoyed this, please make sure to leave. You don't leave comments, but I guess leave a good rating or
you can
five-star
leave
rating.
a review, I think, actually.
Yeah, leave
and
reviews, leave
5-star
ratings.
rating.
Let us know what you guys are thinking, and we really would appreciate it.
And we've heard that for podcasters, it's important to have good ratings on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
So that would help us out a lot. Also, of course, we're available on Google Podcasts and Spotify.
It should be available pretty much on all those all those main platforms.
Yeah. And I think that's really all we had to say in this first episode. We really hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know if you have any feedback already. And we're just gonna hear. Oh, we never said how often the episodes are gonna be released. So they're gonna be released every week in the beginning, and then we're gonna see how everything's gonna work out.
Yep.
So then, with that, hopefully we're gonna see you next week.
Yeah.
Not see you, no.
Well,
you guys are gonna hear us. You'll hear us.
We'll talk to you.
Yep.
But no, thank you guys for listening, and we hope that everyone has a great week, and hopefully you'll be back next week to hear more, and we look forward to seeing what this becomes. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Ciao.
Tschüss.